The King and the Bean. There once lived a good king who reigned over a small and friendly kingdom. The people that lived there worked hard and lived happy, but the king had a problem. He had no children, so he had no heir, and he was no longer a young king. He knew he would need to find someone worthy to take his throne. He discussed his concerns with his advisors, men of wisdom that he trusted. The advisors thought and thought some more about the king's problem. "Gracious king," they said after much counsel, "we have devised a solution to your dilemma. We will gather the wisest men in the kingdom and we will test them in history, science, and math. The one with the highest score will be your heir." The king thought about the proposal. A scholar could be a good choice for a king, but is being smart really enough to rule a kingdom? "No," said the king. "Intelligence is well and good, but not all that is needed to be a king." And with that the king's advisors went back to talking and thinking and talking. "Gracious king," they said after much counsel, "we have devised a solution to your dilemma. We will gather all of the mightiest warriors and have them compete in a grand battle. The winner will be the heir to your throne." The king thought about this proposal. A mighty warrior could be a good choice for a king, but is being strong really enough to rule a kingdom? "No," said the king. "Strength alone is not what is needed for the man that will take my throne." So, the advisors went back to their thinking and thinking some more. "Gracious king," they said once more, "we have a solution to your dilemma. We will gather the bravest men in the kingdom. We will set them on a journey through trials and toils, rain and snow, beast and need. The one that arrives home first will be your heir." The king thought about the proposal. A man of courage could be a good leader, but is being brave really enough to rule a kingdom? "No," said the king. "Bravery of itself is not going to do to rule this land." And while the advisors returned to their talking and talking some more, the king came up with his own plan. He sent out a decree that all of the children should come to the castle courtyard, for the king himself had a special gift for them. The day of the decree arrived, and with it all of the children of the kingdom. The king had each child presented with a small box, and in the box was a small bean. The king told them they were to plant and tend their beans, and he would send for them again to see how their plants had grown. The children ran home excitedly talking about their special beans and whose would grow the biggest. But Rory stood in the courtyard after everyone else had left looking at his gift. And then he carefully walked home, making sure not to drop or lose it. Rory planted his bean, he watered it, he placed it in the sunlight, but nothing grew. Day after day, week after week, nothing. Rory felt like he had something wrong. The king would be so disappointed in him, just as he was disappointed in himself. He would often walk around the kingdom and he saw all the beautiful blooms and blossoms the other children had grown. And the other children would laugh as they passed Rory tending to his empty pot. Finally, the king's decree arrived, telling the children it was time to bring their plants to show the king. Rory thought about not going. After all, he had nothing to show for all his hard work. But the king had called all of the children and he must go. All of the children of the kingdom stood on either side of the pathway in the king's courtyard, holding their pots containing all of the big, beautiful blooms. As the king walked down the path, he never spoke, never smiled, only looking and shaking his head. If he doesn't like all of these beautiful flowers that the others have grown, thought Rory, how much more will he dislike mine? He stepped back, trying to not be seen in the crowd. Maybe the king would pass by him and not see how he had failed. The king did walk by, but then turned and walked back, stopping right in front of where Rory was standing behind a girl holding a large sunflower. "Step forward, son," the king said to Rory, and Rory sheepishly stepped to the front of the crowd. "Why is your pot empty?" asked the king. Almost in tears, Rory began to explain how he had carefully planted the bean the king had given him. He watered it and made sure it had plenty of sunshine, but nothing grew. "I'm very sorry, your majesty," and he hung his head in shame. The king rather firmly put his hand on Rory's shoulder and simply said, "Come with me." Then he led the boy to the front of the crowd. "Oh no," Rory worried. "He's so cross with me that he's going to make an example of my failure. Everyone will make fun of me. I gave each of you a special small bean to plant and grow. And as I look at this crowd full of big, healthy flowers, I am aware you all have failed." A loud gasp came from the crowd at hearing the king. Rory lifted his head and looked at the king in confusion. "You see," continued the king, "I am in need of an heir to my throne, and the beans I gave you were a test to decide who that will be. The beans I gave you had all been boiled, they could not grow." The children looked at the flowers they were holding and realized what they had done. The king brought Rory to stand in front of him and held up his empty pot. "This boy alone did not deceive me. He tended his bean even though it did not grow. He is the only one that did not replace the bean with something that would grow. Though he thought he was the only one to fail, he was actually the only one to succeed. Anyone can learn to be a scholar or to fight like a warrior. You can even learn to be brave, face your biggest fears. But your integrity comes from the heart. And because of his honor and honesty, I present to you your next king. The crowd stood in silence, then began to murmur, and finally erupted in a hearty cheer. Hooray for Rory, the future king. Rory didn't know what to say or do, so he said and did nothing. The king knelt down and told Rory, "You have done rightly, and for that your reward will be great." Days passed, then weeks, months, and years. And Rory became king. He learned to be a scholar, a warrior, and to be brave. But above all, he ruled his kingdom with honesty. And he kept his empty pot to always remember that sometimes failure can lead to your biggest success.